very good question. So traditionally, the typical KYC, know your customer, has been validating any form of ID, be it a driver's license, a national ID card, a passport, etc., and validating those kind of digital identities with biometrics and doing face match and validating that people that are presenting an ID, it's a valid ID, it's not manipulated, it's not a fraudulent ID, and that it's a live person and that it's the same person that should be presenting that ID. Throughout the years, that has been the traditional KYC, know your customer, but lately customers have been asking us more than that. It's not enough just to validate an ID and biometrics, but we need to start validating everything that has to do with the ecosystem of a person. So that can be their email, that can be their phone, that can be the risk of the device, understanding if the device that the user is using to enter your platform, your digital bank, to say something, doesn't pose any risk, doesn't have any system operator emulator, any proxy, any VPN, any routing of IP. The email, when they're putting their email address, is it a valid email? Did they open this email yesterday, or have they had this email for 10 years, which poses much less risk? Same thing with the activity of the phone number. So a lot of the things that we validate today and our customers are asking is a way of simplifying their life in terms of validating all this different signal risk and device risk in order to understand the risk score of a person, not just by their ID and their identity, but by everything that has to do with them. So we basically integrate a lot of solutions that are partners of ours in one single API in order for our customers to be able to see one risk score, one integration, one support, and one identity altogether with everything that has to do with that person.
So one thing with fintechs that are looking to protect against fraud, it seems like they have to make a trade-off between kind of user experience, making the onboarding easy, and still protecting from that fraud. How do you help with that, and how would it make onboarding difficult in the first place?
So that's the $1 million question, but I'm not going to charge $1 million. So basically, that's a good question, because how do you balance catching fraud, rejecting the bad people, and conversion, approving the good people at the same time while giving a good experience? So it's fairly easy. If you want to reject all the bad people, you just want to make sure that you don't reject good people as well, right? Because you can put a lot of roadblocks, ask for a lot of things, take a picture of your ID, do a selfie, touch your ear, take a picture with your dog and your bird and everything. So, but then you're creating so much friction that, you're making it difficult for fraudsters, but you're making it difficult as well for good people. So you need to do that balance of, I want to put enough roadblocks for the fraudsters, but not enough friction for the good people. So the user experience is very, very important. So at Jumio, we've been working for many, many years on this in doing that balance with our integration with our SDK, with our web solutions, in terms of balancing what is, number one, complying or helping companies to comply with regulators, because in every country also you have different regulators that ask for different things from fintechs. So helping companies comply with what the regulation is asking them, catching fraud, so identifying the bad players, identifying the fraudulent IDs, identifying if manipulation of faces, etc., helping with conversion with a very good user experience. At the end of the day, if your user experience is not good, you're going to have a lot of abandonment, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to leave at the middle of the process where you're trying to identify them, and you're going to lose customers. A fintech, when they go live, their purpose is not to send fraudsters to jail. Their purpose is to make money. So how do you make money? Converting people. How do you convert people? With a good user experience. Of course, a fraud manager or a risk manager is going to say, well, I don't really care much about converting people. I want to avoid risk and fraud. So that's what we help balance, fraud and conversion, which is the most important thing.
I mean, related to this, you guys span over, I think, over 200 different jurisdictions. So you must have to cater for a lot of different identity documents and stuff like that. So how do you protect from fraud while still making sure there's inclusion within that whole span?
So you said inclusion, which covers a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about, we can talk also about financial inclusion, but in terms of your specific question, yeah, we validate over 5,000 different forms of IDs from all over the world. Passports from every country, most national IDs, most driver's licenses, and in some countries, other forms of ID. Like in Brazil, you have doctor's ID, you have lawyer's ID, and foreigners' IDs in Colombia or Peru or Argentina and different countries. So, by the way, go Argentina today, okay? So we have the templates, we have the intelligence of everything, from all the IDs from all over the world, be it holograms or ghost pictures or different microprints or anything that has to do, every ID has different forms of validating if they've been manipulated or not. So we know that for every ID that comes out. We are working as well with the new forms of digital ID. Today, just like the credit card plastic is disappearing versus the wallets and now all the digital payments, same thing is going to happen with the IDs, right? I mean, that plastic ID, little by little, is going to start disappearing, and your ID is going to be on your phone, and eventually your ID is going to be your face, right? So we work today with all the forms of paperized IDs, of course, and we cover, like you said, all the different countries in the world.
But of course, fraudsters are getting more sophisticated, they're adapting to the new technologies. Are you concerned about that, and how do you protect against that?
I'm not concerned, we're not concerned, fintechs are concerned. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, fraudsters are getting very, very sophisticated. There's billions of dollars that get moved in the dark web because of the fraudsters. I mean, it's really very, very sophisticated mafias that are out there on the dark web, stealing identities, stealing bank accounts, credit cards, you name it. I mean, everything is being moved on the dark web. So they have a lot of money. So since they have a lot of money, they have access to very good technology, right? So fraudsters are moving at a very, very fast pace over the net, just like Bonnie and Clyde used to have the best guns when they go to rob a bank. Today, fraudsters have very good technology when they rob money online. We have the best artificial intelligence in the world, So we've been doing this for over 10 years. We're doing, we have done already over 600 million validations of identities. So we have a lot of data. We've seen a lot of IDs. We've seen a lot of faces, and that feeds into our artificial intelligence. That feeds into our machine learning. And we are always a step ahead of the fraudsters. So we see what's being trended by the fraudsters, and we're prepared our artificial intelligence towards that. One of the things that we're looking at right now, for example, and we're doing beta testing with a very, very large account, is we're not looking only at the ID itself and the data inside the ID, but we're also looking at the whole ecosystem of the picture. So how is the ID being held? What is the background behind the ID? And try to look at patterns and behaviors of what's happening with those IDs and those transactions that are moving through that fintech. Just like serial killers, leave traces of what they do when they're committing a crime, and they kill all their victims the same way. Well, professional fraudsters do the same thing. They leave traces and they commit the fraud in the same way every time they do it. So that's what we're looking at: patterns, behaviors, feed our machine learning, our AI, in order to bring that service to our customers, regardless of the vertical they're in.
Is there anything that businesses can do apart from contracting you guys? Is there anything else?
So yeah, I mean, we call ourselves not salespeople, but more educators. There's so many solutions out there. I mean, a few of them are here. What I would tell businesses is really do your research, understand what is it that you're going to implement. You're spending a lot of money, you're taking time, resources, in integration, in validation, and your reputation, right? I mean, if you're rejecting wrong people, or if you have a bunch of fraudsters, your reputation is worth a lot more money than what you're paying for a service like Jumio's, right? So what I would recommend for businesses is do your research, understand what is it that you're gonna integrate. It may seem at first glance like we all do the same thing. You take a picture of the ID, you do the selfie, etc., etc. So some fintechs tend to say, okay, they all do the same thing, we'll go with the cheapest one. No, there's a lot of things that are behind the scenes are way different. So that's what I recommend you guys do. Get in touch with us, let us show you exactly why we're different, why we're the worldwide leaders, why the top 10 gambling companies in the world use Jumio, why the top crypto platforms in the world use Jumio, why the largest digital banks, digital wallets use Jumio. There's a reason behind that. It's how we validate not only the IDs, how we validate that behind the camera it's a live person. It's not an injection of a video, it's not a manipulated picture, photo ID, a photocopy, etc. So there's a lot of things that you don't know that happen behind the scenes, and that's why I recommend, that the number one thing is do your research.
Okay, and I'm going to ask one more question before I turn it out to the audience. We're coming to the end of the year. What are your predictions for 2023?
Wow, let me look at my crystal ball. So prediction for 2023. So interesting, yesterday I was talking to somebody about this exactly. And I think, at least in Latin America, we're going to see a lot of movement from regulators. So fintechs and all the digital environment has been moving at a very fast pace since COVID till now. COVID definitely accelerated all the digital transformation in terms of transactions over the net, digital banks, wallets, transfer companies, etc. So regulators have been trying to keep up. Sometimes because of, I guess, lack of knowledge or lack of understanding what the user needs, from a user experience, regulations have been a little stricter than what they should be. So I think we're going to see that flexibility coming next year of forcing regulations to protect the identity of the users, forcing fintechs to make sure that you're protecting the data, everything that has to do with privacy, GDPR, LGBT in Brazil, or every country has a different acronym, but protecting the data of the users, but at the same time, protecting the user in terms of giving them a good experience and really letting them transact. This touches the border of financial inclusion, right? So if we look at Latin America and Africa, we're the two regions with the lowest financial inclusion in the world, right? So you look at remote areas where there may not be bank branches or whatever it is. However, everybody has a center of formula. So we need to use the regulator, the technology companies like Jumio, the fintechs like you guys, really work together in bringing a good experience, bringing a good product to everybody, so we can really get the majority of their citizenship included in all the financial ecosystem. That's the only way that really the world is going to progress, and our region, Latin America, is going to progress. We need to really work on that financial inclusion.
I agree. I think we might have time for one question.
Who's going to win today?
Does anyone want to ask? Okay. Because do you see government making progress to make your work easier? Are they still the weakest link?
Yeah, so that's a good question. That's what I was mentioning. Right now, we look at regulators, and it's a tough conversation between technology companies like us, regulators, fintechs. It seems like sometimes we all have different goals, and that's where I think we all need to work better together. Governments, regulators that are really the government. We need to sit down with the fintechs and understand that not every flow, not every user journey should be the same for everybody. There's different appetite risks, there's different things that you get from people and different ways to protect the data and the identity of people. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting year in terms of government regulations.
Looking forward to seeing you guys in this year.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Fintech Nexus,
Thank you.
and thanks all of you for assisting. And go Argentina!